But it's, again, it just tells a story of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Think Tank. Listening while you run errands. Thanks for stopping in, friend. And good to see everybody else. So the behavior panel, I am really curious about this one. I haven't looked at it. And I'm really curious after those Proudfoot being on Nancy Grace. I'm really curious to see what their take is. So how you doing, Mom? Maxie, Jonathan, got Shauna and Mel, Chopper, Dandy. My ears aren't working well. They're fully charged. All righty. So I think what we'll do is we'll just bring this up because I am so curious about this. So curious. I wonder if this one's any better. Yeah, good to see everybody. Cafe Archival and Dragon, classy diamond art. Ooh, nice. Very nice. Okay, so this is the behavior panel, and they all have their own speciality, and they get together on a regular basis, and they give their opinions on certain people. So this is going to be their thoughts.
Analyze the behavior of the parents of a little fellow named Sebastian Rogers. Greg, wants to tell us about the videos we're going to watch.
Yeah, so Sebastian Rogers is a 15-year-old missing teen who is somewhere on the autism spectrum. We'll learn that from the parents as they talk about it. He was last seen on February 26th. He left the house with no shoes, took a flashlight only. When we say left, we don't know how or when or with who or if with who. So we're going to watch this video and work through it. This investigation, this has now become an investigation. It was a massive search for several days, and we're going to look at the parents' first interview on 7 March of 2024.
So first, just express, I can't even imagine as a parent what you two are going through. How would you describe the situation right now? How are you coping?
So while we are going through this, if you guys have any comments, I would love to see and hear your take on this, because last night on Nancy Grace, I got a total different view. I wasn't sure about these people. So yeah, I'd love to know your opinion.
We're on a constant roller coaster ride of helpless and hopeless and many other emotions all in one, and it's a never-ending roller coaster. It doesn't stop. It won't stop until he walks through the door.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Not anyone.
I know we're about keeping hope alive. I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
So what are they going to say about her rocking, do you think? That's the first thing I'm kind of noticing is the rocking.
Oh, yeah.
He's gonna
Always.
come home.
He's going to walk through that door. And the street will be flooded again with family and relatives all waiting to hug and love him. And
That boy's gonna have more friends than he knows what to do with when he comes home.
So, all right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so let's first start off start by talking about there's so much information, disinformation, misinformation out there about this case that what we're going to have to do is rely on what we can see. So what we're not doing is telling you what the facts are any more than we have learned from this channel or that channel. In the beginning, there were people saying that the father was left the night before. And then there are people who say had been in Memphis for 2 weeks, the stepfather. So there's a ton of stuff here. And what we're going to do is tell you what we see.
So this is the thing. Last night, didn't he say that he had been there since the beginning of February? There's some things that are contradictory, absolutely. So yeah, I do want to thank these guys. Scott Rouse got, I think that's how you say his last name, Scott. He got a hold of me right away and said, yeah, use that information. So very, very grateful for them allowing us to look at their content, because these are skills that I certainly don't have.
See, some of you are going to be irritated by it. That's okay. That's part of it. But what I want to start with is saying this guy's a tower crane operator. You know what a tower crane is? It's you climb up a really big ladder and operate a crane. You're moving stuff around over people's heads all the time. So if he's not as flappable, not as shaky, doesn't bother me, because I think, okay, here's a guy who does something that's kind of high stress for a living. That part's one thing. But what I am going to do is compare him to him, not him to me or him to Mark or him to Scott or him to Chase. We're going to look at what we see in him and look for deviations. In the beginning, she's doing an adapter that is awfully close to what I usually refer to as trancer from a True Crime Workshop, where a person makes himself emotionally unavailable to you by some kind of movement, by too much overwhelming emotion, but she isn't unaffected. She's available. So don't take that out of your mind that just because she's swaying means she's doing something. It means she's comforting self, because that release of nervous energy is comforting. There's a clear handoff from her to him. And if you don't think that's a handoff, you're not paying attention to what they're doing. That doesn't mean that she said, if I cry, if I laugh, if I do, you need to do this. It means that he sees that she needs that relief. Could be scripted, don't know. But his language in there is awfully wooden and awkward, which tells me that this is probably when they were thinking about what are we going to say. He's going to say it's been an emotional roller coaster, because the language seems awkward. It doesn't seem accurate or upfront. It's okay, because that's what people do. There's also a couple of other little bitty pieces of body language, and I'll go to something else, let you guys cover the rest. But he does that's fair, body language when he's asked the question that he should have considered about, I forget exactly what it is. Oh, yeah. When she says, there's still hope, right? And he's like, well, oh, yeah, there's hope. I should have said that, should have thought of that's what I see in that body language. There is, however, some really interesting body language when they talk about friends. And when they talk about a lot of people coming back, he's going to have more friends than he's had in the past. And her lead into that, the stress on that word friends, makes me wonder, was there some kind of an altercation about his access to people that she feels guilty for? She feels something about, because that comes up pretty strong in both their body language and in her stressing of the body language, or of the word. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, and to mirror Greg, we're here to analyze the behavior.
So, yeah, I was wondering about that rocking. I'd heard it's kind of a self-soothing motion, which makes sense to me, because I know under stress, like, I will rock.
Behavior only of Sebastian's parents. And first and foremost, I want to emphasize that there's an outpouring of community support for Sebastian. And our focus is solely on understanding the behavioral dynamics of what's going on and how it might contribute to Sebastian's getting back home. So this is not about assigning blame or guilt. So we're just doing an opinion here to help in any way that we can. So with this rocking back and forth, I think it's a self-soothing behavior that people very often exhibit when they're under a lot of stress or they're going through some high level of anxiety. It's a way for our body to comfort itself in the absence of external comfort. And then there's a smile when she turns to her husband here. And this is likely disbelief, not some kind of joy or happiness about the moment. This is why we talk about context and when those behaviors occur. It's so important. And for now, I'm just going to assume it's baseline until I see more with this rocking and stuff. And when she says he's going to walk through that door, or no, he says this, when he's going to walk through that door, there's a lip pursing behavior right there, which is a little unusual. You see this kind of lip pursing. And this is
Oh, did you guys notice that? What is he going to say about that? That's okay. Interesting.
most often a nonverbal sign of disagreement or disapproval. And
Oh,
sometimes it's like a person's holding back something they don't want to say, or they're expressing doubt about what they just said. And they're not looking at each other, and they're not responding to each other's statements. And I think this could be a sign that there's no rehearsal, but it could also indicate there's something going on between them, like some emotional drama, which I'm sure there is, especially if Sebastian's missing and they're both innocent. And in the videos we've seen like this one, where we do know the outcome, this behavior is more common in people who are innocent, but there could be more to see here. And I think this single behavior doesn't spell anything definitive. I'm not hearing his name mentioned yet, but if I hear minimal mention of a missing person's name, which you've heard us talk about before, and there's no other indicators, like big piles of indicators that indicate deception, it's just a data point. So I keep that in my back pocket until I see a cluster of behavior. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Thanks, man. I agree with you. I'm seeing a lot of the same things you guys have seen so far. But right out of the gate, there's a little something with each of them that bothered me a little bit. Like we were talking about before, doesn't mean they're innocent, doesn't mean they're guilty. Nothing. I'm just telling you what I see. We're just telling you what we see. He shows no emotion toward her whatsoever. It's a flat effect. And no grief, no concern. And he looks really rested. And
this is all true. Like these guys, they are so well trained, unreal. But he's bang on.
So that rocking she's doing back and forth. We see this throughout all the videos we're going to see today. What we'll look for during this, pay attention to this, is fascinating the way this works. You'll see them rock in tandem a few times, especially at the beginning of the first one to answer. As she's rocking, he'll start rocking with her. So he's matching her rocking. And I'm sure, like what you were talking about, Chase, the emotional thing between them is she may have just sealed herself off. She's probably in such a big upheaval of emotion. She's short with him. He's trying to be cool because she's worried about a kid, is what I would think. That's what I took out of that. Her eyes are red. She's not rested. She looks like she should look. And that upheaval emotion that we see, she's suddenly reliving that horror. I always talk about that on here, how we're not seeing that. So that's one of the things we're seeing with someone who we haven't seen with people who aren't innocent. She's got a new Kleenex. Now, if you remember, the last person we looked at that was crying and all that stuff, constantly wiping their eyes and doing their nose with the same Kleenex. And it's just this balled up little ball. Hers isn't, it's new. And notice how many times during these videos, she doesn't wipe tears and she doesn't wipe her nose. She only does it a couple of times because those are the times that she needs it. People who are faking this usually are under the impression, I should have tears coming out, so I'll keep doing this. And notice when she uses that Kleenex here at the first, where she just does it on the top of her nose. So I thought that was interesting as well. Not saying she's innocent, not saying she's guilty.
Isn't that something though? Because that's always something you watch for is fake tears, right? And he's not exhibiting any emotion whatsoever.
But these are just things that I'm noticing anyway. And then she's not looking at him at all. Doesn't look at him at all, but he does look at her as they go through. So, all right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, very much the same. Look, time has passed since they had, notified the police, and this interview is happening. Maybe as much as, what do you think, Greg? Like 8 days or something like that?
8 days. 9 days.
Around about that. Around about that. Okay, so look, it's time for them to organize a story together if they wanted to. So, look, they could organize a story together. What they can't organize is the synchronicity of their movement. That choreography would take a lot of rehearsal. And it's consistent. She rocks back and forth 3 times. He breathes in and out. There's this waltz timing going on throughout. You can't rehearse that stuff. They're absolutely in synchronous movement, that would suggest, just as you're saying, Scott, that there is a shared experience, a shared emotion. You know, if there wasn't.
These guys are so good. Between the four of them, the things that they pick up is truly amazing. I'm really glad that they looked at the mom and her husband. I'm really glad that they have done this.
Anything shared, it would be very hard to organize that subtle synchronous level of
one thing I did miss though was that they do look at each other in that one. I for a second I thought we're looking at number 2. They look at each other for about 2.5 seconds on this one. So sorry about that. Sorry to jump in, but I had to make sure I said that.
Sure. They also talk about hope. You know, Chase, to your point of there is something unsaid. You know, there's a possibility here of a loss of hope and a sense of hope at the same time, having to balance the two things together, hold those two ideas. You've got to remain hopeful at the same time. You may be losing hope. So I think they talk about hope, though. There's some closed lips there from the male, from the father. He uses the idea of that boy rather than maybe she does as well. We're not often throughout this going to hear Sebastian named, often called that boy. I would suggest that's more likely cultural than them trying to distance themselves. It's more likely a term of endearment. That's all I got on that one. Early days, but looks to me pretty good from moment one, just on the synchronicity that they have together, which is tough to organize. That they could have organized a story. That's all I got on that one.
Yeah, one thing to add while we're all talking about this and synchronicity and all that is couples get to a certain behavior mark. To your point, he knows what to expect. He knows that how many times she's going to sniffle, how many times she's going to cry, what she's going to. He probably has some of that already in his head from the amount of time they're together. And we do it on a subconscious level, even at some point.
And couples are in sync when they're being honest.
Oh.
They fall out of sync during those times when we're pretending.
That's one of the things that bothered me doing this. As when we first started this, I'd made up my mind. I knew I had made up my mind about something in this, and I'm just not sure about it at this point. But that's one of the things that swayed me on it.
One of those tape replays.
So first, just express, I can't even imagine as a parent what you two are going through. How would you describe the situation right now? How are you coping?
We're on a constant roller coaster ride of helpless and hopeless and many other emotions all in one, and it's a never-ending roller coaster. It doesn't stop. It won't stop until he walks through the door.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Not anyone.
I know we're about keeping hope alive. I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
He's gonna
Always.
come home.
He's going to walk through that door. And this street will be flooded again with family and relatives all waiting to hug and love him. And
It sure is interesting, isn't it? Like, very interesting. He's not making any kind of eye contact, and she makes very little. But she does say that she's looking at a picture of Sebastian while she's talking and giving these interviews.
That boy's gonna have more friends than he knows what to do with when he comes home.
So here we are, 8 days now searching for him. Walk us through that Sunday night that he went missing. So walk us through, we've got so many people who really want to know, okay, how did this happen? So kind of just walk us through that night.
We were out and about that day. We were having a really good weekend. We got home. Everything was pretty normal. He was playing in his room. When I told him to go to bed, he did. He said, "Good night, Mom. I love you." Said good night to his puppies. A little bit later, I wound up going to bed, and when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there.
So in your mind, that's usually around what time? When do you normally wake up? Around 6 o'clock?
6.
So were you instantly thinking something's wrong, or were you like, he may just be already in the shower?
I took a second and walked through the house looking for him in case he'd gotten up and was trying to get breakfast or something, because he did that sometimes. About 3 minutes in, give or take.
So, did you notice that he did that sometimes? So I wonder what they're going to think of that, the past tense being spoken.
Hey, I was on the phone with my husband. I said, "I can't find him." He said, "What do you mean you can't find him?" I said, "He's not in the house."
And so at that point, is that when you call 911, or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone, and I was like, "Is he on the other side of the bed?" The normal places he may be in the house, and he wasn't. So I was like, "Okay, well, hold on a minute." And immediately after that, we called the sheriff's department and made the report.
I ran all over the house, outside, inside. I looked in every closet.
Within minutes, they were here. They responded within minutes, and here we go.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
There's one line in here that got to me when I was watching it, and it's when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there. Reminds me of a sheriff in Texas who said, "It'll kill you big enough to die." So some strange wording, but it's an outlier. So let's look into it. This could be habit, the way that she speaks and references this action. And this could be indicative of him being present or being there. I'll let you decide if you feel like jumping to something right away. A lot of people feel good about doing that. At this point in the clip and in the videos, I'm not seeing a typical amount of behavior here that would make me suspicious. And at the 8-day mark, they're still expressing some signs of hopefulness, which is good to see. They're looking at each other more here, as I would want to see. They're more willing to look away from the interviewer and connect during these critical parts of their recollection. And the stepfather, is detailing going through a search of the house comfortably with added detail that we'd expect to see in innocent people. And in a case of somebody who's guilty, I would more expect to see that somebody would not want to go backward from the 911 call to add more details. And if you notice, that's what happens here. They go backwards. So he's comfortable doing this. It's a good sign. And when a piece of a story comes out that's rehearsed and false, the story is, it's super hard to go backward. And often you'll see people are more likely to be guilty, feeling this internal pressure to continue down the path of what makes them comfortable. And what makes them comfortable is something that they've rehearsed. So the father's using comfortable hand gestures that are timed with his speech. The mother is using her eyes and head comfortably to illustrate searching the house. And earlier, we talked about the mother's rocking back and forth and that we need to pay attention to it. This part here is where I wanted to look. And when there's a critical part of a story coming out that's deceptive, this takes up so much mental energy to be deceptive that the body would stop rocking to focus the mind on the story. She keeps rocking through it. And what I'll be looking for from a profiling perspective is when the rocking stops. Blink rate, gestures, facial expressions, and movements are all in line with somebody being truthful and honest. One big thing to notice is that there's no focus in either of them on managing perception and exaggerating the sadness and grief. Those are the two big things we see in just about, I think, maybe 100% of these videos.
So yeah, that's true. That's true. They're not exaggerating everything. The mother's got emotion. He's not showing any. The rocking. Oh, you guys. This is why we got a panel like this. Wow.
Manage perception, exaggerate the sadness and the grief. We're not seeing those two big hallmarks. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, when I asked him to go to bed, he did, and there's a little bit of an exhale of laughter around that. So a release of tension around that. My guess is, and I'm speculating here, is you've got a male here reaching teenage, more testosterone, therefore more obstinate on the spectrum as well. So that can exacerbate the routines and the sense of risk as well, doing things that are more risky. Obviously, we know that levels of testosterone, as they go up, we see less risk in the world. We'll take more risks the more testosterone that we have going around our body. That's why if you're a male a male will have a propensity on the aggregate to create more testosterone than a female. Not every day, but most days, if you aggregate all males together. And that's why you will pay more for your driving insurance, especially if you're anywhere between 15 and 23, because you see the world as less risky the more testosterone you're creating in your body. So just a little behavioral thing there of we've maybe got a male here that is seeing less risk in the world. And so it's interesting to the mother that she asks him to do something and he does it. So, no blame though. To the child. He's not a runner. He's a good kid. He's not mischievous. Often in examples where we do see parents involved in some way or holding back information, there will be some level of blame placed around the kid. Here, we've got no level of blame. Look, let's just look at the male here. We're not going to see grief in the forehead here because the guy's wearing a cap and he's shaded as well. So we're not seeing some of the areas of the body that we would like to see if we're to see grief, if grief is there at all. I don't know whether it is or not. We may see it in other parts of the face, but we're not going to see it in the forehead here.
It amazes me, these tiny clips, and they're able to make all of these assessments. It blows me away. And they generally agree with each other. Just amazing.
Know why. There's a deep exhale. I don't know why he walked out that door. Deep exhale there. So there's clearly a pause there before why he walked out the door. What's that about? I don't know. I'm not a mind reader, but clearly there's a pause for thought about the idea of him walking out the door. Is it a pause for thought about the possibility that he was walked out the door in some way or taken out the door in some way? I don't know, but certainly there's a pause. There's a moment taken there. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, Mark, interesting. You bring up the whole, we can't see his forehead, so we can't tell if there's grief. But I do see something interesting in the beginning. I see a grimace, kind of a grimace in his face and a deep swallow. We usually associate those with really strong negative emotion, usually. Now, it could be something else. But we just came out of the last video and into this one, so it's related to that last question around the kid. So I think it's still there. His blink rate is really low. I think part of that is his baseline. If we watch, he does a flutter occasionally, but when she starts to bring up so many people, I think this is a hot button for him. We'll find out later. When she does that, his blink rate jumps. It pulses right through the roof. And he goes into internal voices. She's talking and mills his hands. Now, here's where people automatically say that means he's lying. Well, for us, it means something's going on in his head. He's milling his hands. We don't know why. We can see it. We can't see his hands. We know he's feeling stressed, but there's a missing kid involved. Mark, to your point, we don't know their relationship. We don't know any of that. One interesting and odd part of body language to me that does occur. She says, we had a really good weekend, and he's down to his left in internal thought and disengaged with his eyes, and then he raises his head and nods yes. Well, if he's not home, how does he know what that was, or is he just supporting her is the question. So we'll look for a pattern of that, looking for where he's trying to endorse something versus just supporting what she's saying. We really can't tell. And I agree with you, Mark, when the mother laughs about he did go to bed,
that would be awesome.
He's been defiant. Clearly, you can tell that. And here's an interesting one. I've tried to find out whether he was home, whether he was away at this time. She says, I went to bed. I, not we, I. So interesting. That means, sounds like he wasn't home. She would have to be very thoughtful and use the pronouns if she was going to cover that. And then let's see. If you listen to her cadence slow, Chase, I'm with you 100%. We always talk about these guys managing perception. If we go back and look at the Madeline Soto case, the stepfather managing perception, the mother managing perception, none here, none of it. They're just going on about their business. And he's using
That's interesting to throw that in about the Madeline Soto case. Might have to take a look at that as well and see what did you do that, Mom? The Madeline Soto one? Because, oh my word, definitely would be worth taking another look at.
big illustrators when he's telling the details of the story. Veray says larger indicators indicate more likely being honest. And then she uses big illustrators with her face. She's going from outside to inside. So those things are good. All those pieces start to look good. Only a couple of cues. Chase, yours, the word pattern shift is weird. I went to woke him up. And then the one with the endorsing with his head movement or saying, yes, we did have a good weekend. Can't figure out which it is. We'll figure out and watch as we go. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I woke him up and he wasn't there. I agree. I think that's cultural, because people talk like that. And I'm from there, not Hendersonville, but from the South in this area, and spent many years, in that area. Know a lot of people in Hendersonville. That's the way they talk. And so I wouldn't think there's much to that. Maybe, I don't know, but that's the way I'm looking at it. What bothers me about this is he said we called 911, and then when the sheriff's department showed up, he said they showed up within minutes, and here we go. So it's this lateral logic thing where you're presented with some facts, and you assume the dad is home during that, like when all that's happening, where he couldn't possibly be home if she just found out and called him, and then he came, and then when he was in, where was he? We found out in
Memphis,
Georgia.
Yeah, but or Memphis. But let's also realize just because this is a thing we deal with all the time. If that were the case, Wendy Adelson, and that whole thing would not be an issue. You don't have to have proximity to have involvement. So yeah, I think
that's true.
It's fair to still look at him as if.
Yeah, that's true. You don't have to be in that vicinity to be involved in whatever went on. There is that. I tell you what, those two things that look like flashlights still bother me. I don't understand those, and I don't know how they could not be part of this.
Right.
Yeah. So it still makes me wonder, when I first started this, I was under the impression he was at home that night and then went to Memphis that morning. So I figured maybe he's the last one to see the kid. And I went down this road of looking at him from an entirely different angle and couldn't believe how relaxed he was. And I thought, this is a cold dude, man, because he's so relaxed. And so, but there are some things, if you look at it from that angle, you'll say, you know what? I think this guy there might be something up here. But if he's been in Memphis 2 weeks, then they don't hold up to that. So it could go either way. But anyway, back to the last.
So how long does it take to get from Memphis to their home? Did he say like 3 hours? Because that still leaves a lot of time in my mind, especially if he's like working, not working, whatever he was trying to get across there.
Lateral logic thing. You're given information, but there's that one little piece missing. You don't get in there and look for that one little piece of information, and you accept everything and move on without thinking about it. And that's what I had done. And I love lateral logic, so I can't believe that got by me. But they do, in this one, they don't look at each other or touch each other either. She's leaned back or leaned forward as a grieving person usually does. That's totally normal. He's leaned back a little bit. That's another thing that made me think about him some. But he's probably, he's not as emotionally involved in this as she is, because it's not his real son. I know that sounds horrible, but there's a big difference there when you're mad at this. You say you don't get along with this kid's father, and I don't know how long these two have been married. May not be very long. Maybe doesn't have a good relationship with the child. So that could be the reason for that. We're not seeing any comparable stress on him at all. He looks fairly relaxed, which makes me think he's so relaxed that he's not worried about thinking, I did this, I've got to watch it. Back to perception management. They're not.
So that's true. A lot of these things I did not even think of. I mean, he's exactly right. There is no attempt at faking any kind of emotion. They're almost, I mean, her anyway, she almost looks numb. Now, I don't know. I could say because her son is gone, but she could be numb for a lot of reasons. And him, I'm just not seeing a lot.
Doing any of that at all. It's like they don't care, because if you didn't do it, you shouldn't care. There's no reason to do that. So that's really interesting. His voice doesn't sound stressed. He doesn't show any upheavals of emotion or any emotions at all, really, as he goes through this. He does look at her a few times throughout the interview, but she never looks at him outside the 2 times that we'll see him look at each other when they go through here. But neither one has said the child's name yet. Doesn't mean anything. Some, in this situation may not mean anything, but we haven't heard his name yet, except from the interviewer.
One of those tape replays.
So here we are, 8 days now searching for him. Walk us through that Sunday night that he went missing. So walk us through, we've got so many people who really want to know, okay, how did this happen? So kind of just walk us through that night.
We were out and about that day. We were having a really good weekend. We got home. Everything was pretty normal. He was playing in his room. When I told him to go to bed, he did. He said, "Good night, Mom. I love you." Said goodnight to his puppies. A little bit later, I wound up going to bed, and when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there.
So in your mind, that's usually around what time? When do you normally wake up? Around 6 o'clock?
6.
So were you instantly thinking something's wrong, or were you like, he may just be already in the shower?
I took a second and walked through the house looking for him in case he'd gotten up and was trying to get breakfast or something, because he did that sometimes. About 3 minutes in, give or take, I was on the phone with my husband. I said, "I can't find him." He said, "What do you mean you can't find him?" I said, "He's not in the house."
And so at that point, is that when you call 911, or what's going through your mind?
While we were on the phone, and I was like, is he on the other side of the bed? The normal places he may be in the house, and he wasn't. So I was like, okay, well, hold on a minute. And immediately after that, we called the sheriff's department and made the report.
I ran all over the house, outside, inside. I looked in every closet.
Within minutes, they were here. They responded within minutes, and here we go.
So you said you were on the phone with her, so
Yes,
you were not home.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I was at work. I'm a tower crane operator, and I was working in Memphis at the St. Jude project. So it's, I have an earpiece in that talks to my phone. I have another earpiece in that does the radios. So when she was talking to me, it was like, what? I was confused. We talked about where he could possibly be, and then we went from there and led to calling the cops, and here we are now.
And within minutes, they're there at the home.
Yes, ma'am.
It was rapid fire. They had cars. They had cars from here down to the
main
road, as far as I could tell.
So what's going through both of your minds? I mean, are we panicking? Is it this, I think he's probably at a neighbor's house, or what are you thinking?
My son doesn't run. He's not a runner. He's never run away before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
I mean, he's a good kid. He's not a mischievous child by any means. But there's answers to questions that have no answers, or questions with no answers right now that we are searching for desperately. And we just don't have that.
Chase, what do you got?
One thing I would really expect to see with these questions that are being asked is what we call target locking behavior. And this kind of pairs in with something called confirmation glance. And this one behavior I've seen in somebody who's guilty every time they have this behavior. And it's typically during two super key points here. And the first one is when a super critical question is being asked that can help them to shape their perception a little bit, when their innocence can be displayed. Second is during and just after their answer to make sure that the interviewer believes it. And we're not seeing any of this here at all. When she's talking, he is comfortable looking at her. And this is more common in innocent people, where guilty people want to do two things. Number one is keep an eye on the interviewer, and two, avoid looking like they're influencing or persuading the other person by looking at them. I know it's irrational, but that's what the fight or flight brain believes. Mother and father or stepfather have an equal amount of exasperation with not being able to understand why he's missing. And the mother is comfortable guessing he walked out the door instead of introducing and injecting ambiguity.
I was just going to say that. It's not like they say, well, someone came in, or they're not coming up with excuses as to how this could happen, which I find interesting.
Ambiguity and uncertainty about some course of events. So that's very good. So keep in mind, when we see small behaviors like Greg talking about him grabbing his arm just a second ago, one of the reasons we talk about clusters so much, pointing out one behavior in isolation is next to meaningless. We've got to have these little clusters of behavior for anything significant to come out of it. That's all I got here, Scott.
All right. Yeah, I agree. It's this in this video. It's hard not to go over the same stuff, so I'll try to knock out a bunch of the same stuff. But Greg, I agree with you. When he's scratching his arm, it seems like something's up there. I think all that's happening here is he's trying to find something to say, so he'll have something to say. I don't think he's a big talker when it comes to tell us what you think about so and so. I don't think he's one to drone on and on. So I think for each one of these situations, he's just looking for something to say. He's just trying to be involved, trying to say something.
Scott, one thing I would add, I think it's really easy to pick a thing and lock down, and not just forget body language, the scratch. The whole point I was making is that, and then he opens up. So there's a difference. It's also the same thing. Why didn't you choose this question instead of that question? Look, people are under stress. They make different decisions. And this is a reason, like statement analysis, you got to be really careful with where you assign words to people based on where they're from and all that kind of stuff. Just a thought.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And then when he's trying to look more concerned than he's very concerned. Don't get me wrong, but he's trying to look concerned. And I'm under the impression that because he looks concerned for a second, then he goes away fairly quickly. Real emotions stick, even though he's feeling these emotions. He's not deep in it like his wife. And my father always said, if in a marriage, if one of you is in the ditch, in other words, one of them is down, so got a lot of stuff going on, you can't get in the ditch with him, or you'll both be in the ditch. So he may be one of those guys. It's like trying to stay out of it and trying to be I'm the guy here and I'm going to take care of everything. So that could be what we're seeing as well, which I'm tending it starting to look like that a little bit for me. But he doesn't really even answer the question there. It's just, he doesn't even answer it. And of course, she goes along showing the same emotional transmissions and transmitting the same thing that she has been up to this point. So nothing's changed much for her. She's just showing us all the body language of a grieving mother. Try not to repeat stuff you guys just said. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, just one thing is that when he was talking about being up in that crane tower early in the morning, receives the call, he's got his walkie-talkie in one ear and his phone in the other ear. I kind of thought, wow, that's pretty early to be working. And then I realized Mrs. Atwood out the back here she's got a tower block being built behind her place, and I can see the crane as we speak, and it's moving around, and that starts as soon as the sun comes up. So I don't know at what time the guy must climb up that.
That is the thing. When it comes to construction sites, they start early. They are at least putting in 10, 12-hour days, and they generally start early, especially in the places that there's a lot of heat during the day. But I don't know. I'm going to listen to these guys. They're the pros, and see what they come up with.
In the dark, which wouldn't be a job that I would want to do any day of the week. So, look, often we don't understand the working times of other people, what their work is like. And it's very easy if they're doing something which is outside of our scope for us to go, well, that's really odd behavior, until we look around and go, for their life, it's not odd behavior at all. That's all I got on that one. Let's have another.
I have a buddy. Check this out. A buddy named Kyle, and his sister, hang on. His sister, Kira, met one of those guys as he was climbing, going to the tower. She could see him from their window, and as he climbed the thing, and every day she would see him doing that. Make a long story short, they got married. He'd go up again, down again, all that stuff, and she'd see him every day, a couple of times, and they got married.
I don't know whether I see the same relationship for Mrs. Atwood. And the crane driver.
Another Atwood incident.
One of those tape replays.
So you said you were on the phone with her, so you were not home.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I was at work. I'm a tower crane operator, and I was working in Memphis at the St. Jude project. So it's, I have an earpiece in that talks to my phone. I have another earpiece in that does the radios. So when she was talking to me, it was like, what? I was confused. We talked about where he could possibly be, and then we went from there and led to calling the cops, and here we are now.
And within minutes, they're there at the home.
Yes, ma'am.
It was rapid fire. They had cars. They had cars from here down to the
main
road, as far as I could tell.
So what's going through both of your minds? I mean, are we panicking? Is it this, I think he's probably at a neighbor's house, or what are you thinking?
My son doesn't run. He's not a runner. He's never run away before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
I mean, he's a good kid. He's not a mischievous child by any means. But there's answers to questions that have no answers, or questions with no answers right now that we are searching for desperately. And we just don't have that.
Is there anything that happened that day that you think back and that there might have been a reason he was possibly upset, or something outside that could have enticed him to go outside? Was there anything that came to mind?
We've been combing over that day and even the weeks before he left, and I hadn't been able to figure it out. He's that morning he was laughing, he was joking. Everyone we were around that day agreed that he seemed like he was in a good mood. He was behaving. It'd make more sense if we'd been fighting.
Or he'd been in trouble, but he hadn't been in trouble. So, I mean, the $1 million question, why did he go? And the other $1 million question is how.
Mm-hmm. What about social media? Is there anything that, anyone he could have contacted? I understand he was somewhat of a gamer, or what was he? There was a video game he loved, right?
Minecraft. He loves Minecraft. The game that he has is not online. He has the Switch. We don't, because of how social media can be, he doesn't have accessibility to communicate with folks on the internet.
I mean, we have a firm belief that we just don't feel that right now he's capable of having that kind of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, his phone is locked down, his computers, his gaming. He doesn't have a gamer tag. He doesn't have online capabilities with games. I mean,
we've combed every electronic. I mean, we've cooperated with all the authorities as far as anything they've asked us to provide.
So what's interesting is they're saying that they've done all of this for the authorities. But if that's the case, have you guys ever heard where they say that they've been cleared? I've not heard that, not even once, that the cops have said that they're cleared. And a lot of times they'll do that just to stop some of the circus, right?
Provided and still just don't have any answers.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, the $1 million question, or the other $1 million question, how? How did he go? And we get quite a cluster of gestures in the face there and gestures with the body. We've got kind of a closed lip frown, which turns up at one side, almost in kind of a contempt kind of way. We've got, well, certainly it's an asymmetrical gesture by any stretch. Hands go out in a shrug. There's a sideways look on that. Well, so it's quite a shift from what he's done before on how did he go. I would suggest what he's saying here is that he feels that's the question. How did he get out there? That's key. And I guess at this point, it's moving from a search to an investigation. And so I guess he's putting the stress on this. The how needs to be investigated, not the where is he. Where is he? They don't know where. They haven't found him at this.
You see, the how is very, very interesting because, I mean, from what they were saying in Nancy Grace's interview, cadaver dogs hit at that pond or slough or whatever it was, said that they hit there and that there's 0 scent. Well, she said that there was scent of Sebastian around the outside of the house. And then what? His trail just leaves? This is just absolutely bizarre to me. I'm not understanding how there was very little trail of him, if any. And I'm not sure exactly where all the dogs went through.
This point, we now need to go back and work out how did he leave. And it's maybe, I would suggest the stepfather is saying he didn't leave potentially on his own, or that's a possibility that needs to be looked at. If somebody's to think he's guilty of something, that's an interesting place to go. If you're guilty, to go, let's investigate this. Let's work out how he left, to put stress on that. If I were guilty of something happening in that house, I'd want people to be looking out, not in for stuff. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. There's a whole lot of adapting, and when they're asking him any reason, he's feeling awkward, you can tell. But this guy also, if we pay attention to him, most of his eye movement, the entire thing is going to be down left, where we think of that as internal voice, as he's digesting questions and how things are behaving. I don't think it means he's calculating and doing all that. But he's now moving, and he's got a heavy internal voice, and his respiration's up. I think this is the crux of the matter. What happened to this kid? Where did he go? I think some of what you see in that kind of contempt or twisted face is when they call him a gamer. I think he's thinking, that might be a stretch. He plays a game and he does this. He doesn't have a tag. What would be interesting for me is we all know that people who are on the spectrum, those especially who are really profoundly affected, often can be very good at remembering exact things. I would check the father. He's used the word he has no gaming tag. Father may have his own accounts. Kid may have ability to get into that, figure out how to make contact with people in a way that he doesn't understand. So I'd look at all that kind of stuff. But she's certain that this kid left. She appears to be certain. Now, we all know that when someone is missing, it's a lot easier to think that they left than they were abducted or somebody did something to them. So it's always a way of holding out hope. And Chase, I agree with you earlier. with his pursing lips when he was saying he's going to come home. We're going to see a little bit more of that later. I think this guy is a very practical, very pragmatic person in appearance, and maybe that's where he's at. But the dad's then goes to internal and emotion as they're starting to say, how did he get out? That's when, Mark, I think you're seeing all that behavior. Like, I don't know. How would he get out of here? And I agree. He wouldn't come into my house and look and see if you can find how he got out. That would probably be the last place you want to go. When he does here's one thing that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't do when somebody says, hey, tell me whether you're innocent. And you say, you're cooperating with the police. That doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And that's the one thing, one of the first things I saw about this in the beginning was a little clip from him on one of the news channels that says, we're cooperating with the police. That immediately gets your hackles up and you go, well, we better go check and find out what's going on with this guy. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Yeah. When talking.
So yeah, exactly. They have said all along. But if that's the case, how come they jumped in their truck and vehicle and headed off towards Memphis? If he is not working, he said last night in that interview with Nancy Grace that he didn't know if he had a job or not. So what was the reason that they drove all the way up there? Weren't they thinking that maybe Sebastian had come home?
About the father, she says, about the real father, she says he talks to his son on a regular basis. Now, a lot of times you'll see that and go, oh, it's something wrong. But I think the mother and the father, obviously, they're divorced. There's probably a little rift going on there. So when she's talking about that, she probably calls him his son. Yeah, you come get your son. You do that. That could be, it may not be. But I think maybe that's why she's using that instead of saying the child's name.
I still find it odd that they don't say his name. How you doing, Mexi?
I'm good. I just wanted to jump on real quick, quietly, and listen in.
What do you think about everything that's being said?
Well, I've only been listening to the last 20 minutes of it. So far, I like these guys. They have really good points.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, we should all just kind of take this for just knowledge, I guess. And
oh, absolutely. I'm
really interested to see them do one on yesterday's interview.
Yeah. I hope they do one. Hello there, Copper Horse. Welcome, friend. Oh, chinchillas are everywhere. Thank you, Mom. Okay, we'll take another look here then. Yeah.
He's adapting with his hands, and she's still rocking, and he gets in sync with her for a second. But his breath rate goes up, and it's fairly heavy for a second. But because I can't decide this one, like I told you before, I'd gone down a whole road. That I've got more information. It's like there's no road there, and his eyes are darting around. So that makes me it puts me a little off there for that question there. Then he looks at her again, and she never looks at him. Then he adds another cornball answer to that $1 million question. And the same thing for the second $1 million question. What happened and how, where'd he go and how? My question would be, what happened and where is he? But, you may not think like that along those lines when you're in that position. And where did like you were saying, where did the question about cooperating with all the authorities come into play? Where do we hear that? He just threw that in there. I didn't see any place to even spark that as he went through. So maybe he's, I don't know. Maybe he's worried about that. I can't really tell. But his so far his innocence has been in question here. So why would he add that? That makes me suspicious there. And then again, toward the end, they start syncing together as they're rocking. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. And when he says it make more sense if we had been fighting, this statement is really revealing. There's a good chance parents who are involved would be far less likely to bring up any mention of fighting or anything negative. They tend to default to pretending that everything was perfect, nothing bad ever happens. The dad also mentions him being in trouble, which is also a good indicator that he's genuinely missing here, because it's not trying to pretend to be perfect. There's a strong confirmation glance after the mother says the word switch, and she's looking over to him right at that moment when she's talking about the Nintendo machine. This is most likely to see if the reporter, or she looks to the reporter to see if the reporter knows even what that is, because it's probably still a foreign object to the mom. So she's making sure the reporter knows it. Then they're talking about not having the answers. This is common. They're not introducing finality, complexity, or ambiguity into the situation. There's a huge difference between being at a total loss for what happened and what we've seen in other videos where the parents speak in terms of the case being unsolvable. All resources have been exhausted. Everything that could have been done has already been completed. This is very different than that. So their behavior overall is apathetic and sad and not concerned with displaying emotion and managing perception. Those are the two big things that are missing here. There's not a lot of display of emotion, deliberate display, and managing perception. Keep in mind that nothing we say means anybody's innocent. And in all of our videos, people tend to think we're analyzing people or the case, but we aren't. What we're telling you in every video is about the presence or lack of behaviors. So if you hear somebody say anywhere on YouTube that they believe something and they don't point to the observable behavior into what they're saying, then you're hearing opinion about the person, not the behavior. So keep this in mind if you're watching anybody, and ask yourself, do they refer to what they think to specific and something that's actually observable? And y'all talking about him going into the how, I would say with him talking to police in 90% of these cases, if you find out the how, that usually leads to where. So that might be some.
Frankie, you're muted.
There we go.
That's why
So
I'm
this-
here. Quick
That's
alert.
why you're here. Great job. So this is the thing. There's not a big show of emotion. So the average person, you don't know how to read that. The mother's a little bit, but him, not so much.
He's being a little bit more stoic, I guess would
Is
be
that
the best way for me to explain that, for
stoic?
lack of a better word. Just, not giving away too much, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way to say it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of eye contact between the two of them. I don't really know what that means. There's a few things that I'm looking forward to them explaining, because they just seem off to me, but to them it could mean something totally different.
And I like that what Chase just said, because they're not out here trying to say that anyone's innocent or guilty. That's not what they're trying to, I guess, profile. They're just looking
Mhm.
at behaviors, like you said. And
Yeah.
you can take it
Yeah.
for what it is. They're just saying, we saw this or we noticed this, just keep a note of it. That could mean so many different reasons.
So
But you
many
don't know
different
why
things.
they're acting that way or where that emotion is coming from, per se.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, for me, I'm total novice at any of this stuff, and it's just I watch them and something just doesn't seem right. But it could be just their regular mannerisms, for all I know.
I mean, this though is like a natural instinct that everyone has. I mean, it's like primal, where
Mhm.
I know Chopper said it quite a bit lately, like your gut feeling, like, where you're just like talking to somebody maybe at like the gas station,
Mhm.
and there's just something that immediately clicks, and you're just like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what's up with you, but I don't
Not
like
really
you,
good.
or I'm not comfortable with you, or there's just something that
Oh, yeah.
puts you off. And it might have been
Yeah.
something that they said, the way they said it, the look on their face when they said it. I don't know. But
Almost anything.
You catch it and you don't know why, but you do catch these things.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, let's get back into this. Lizzie.
Something he picked up from the detectives. Mark, what do you got?
I've been.
All right.
I think we're all done. Yeah.
It's not just me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
They're doing their scare house thing.
Oh shit, he's frozen. There it is. Look at him. He looks like he's playing one of those games. I'll get him. It's like Space Invaders back from the 80s. Here we go. There he is.
And he's back.
There we are.
Sorry, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Did you see her face, though? You didn't see yourself frozen?
Oh, okay.
There.
Yeah. Did you hear everything that Mark was saying about the British woman? Do what? Okay.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So you didn't see Chase? Okay. Okay. So you didn't know you were muted this whole time? You're muted.
Yeah, when the generator turned on, that's right. When the generator turned back on, I hit mute.
Oh, dude.
Shit, I'm on noise.
That was awesome.
That was probably our
Everybody
longest
does
mute
it, guys.
ever.
Everybody
That's
needs
good.
them.
Someone has
good.
beat my record.
Yeah. We're gonna have to
That's
now
good.
That was tough.
create a whole new award. It's gonna cost.
I deserve it. When I could hear the generator turning shit off and on, I hit mute because I was like, okay, we don't want all this coming up when it does come back up. And then, yeah.
That was great, man.
Love it.
Good.
Classic. History was made today.
That's a good one. We
Yeah.
need that
Yeah.
because this is a
Well,
dark subject.
Hats off.
12th of March, 2024. The longest mute ever. Greg Hartley, ladies and gentlemen.
At 2:48 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah. Beautiful.
God bless.
One of those tape replays.
Is there anything that happened that day that you think back and that there might have been a reason he was possibly upset or something outside that could have enticed him to go outside? Was there anything that came to mind?
We've been combing over that day and even the weeks before he left, and I hadn't been able to figure it out. He's that morning he was laughing, he was joking. Everyone we were around that day agreed that he seemed like he was in a good mood. He was behaving. It'd make more sense if we'd been fighting.
Or he'd been in trouble, but he hadn't been in trouble. So, I mean, the $1 million question, why did he go? And the other $1 million question is how.
What about social media? Is there anything that, anyone he could have contacted? I understand he was somewhat of a gamer, or what was he? There was a video game he loved, right?
Minecraft. He loves Minecraft. The game that he has is not online. He has the Switch.
We don't, because of how social media can be, he doesn't have accessibility to communicate with folks on internet. I mean, we have a firm belief that we just don't feel that right now he's capable of having that kind of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, his phone is locked down, his computers, his gaming. He doesn't have a gamer tag. He doesn't have online capabilities with games.
We've combed every electronic. I mean, we've cooperated with all the authorities as far as anything they've asked us to provide, we've provided, and still just don't have any answers.
Did he have any friends that could have possibly contacted him in some way on his phone?
All his friends at school have been questioned to my knowledge, and none of them knew anything.
So this big question mark. He's vanished.
Yes, ma'am.
No one can figure out where or why.
So he wasn't even caught on neighbors' cameras. anything. Like, it's
Okay.
just like he evaporated from that house.
That I don't know. That just I know I've said it several times with how easy it is to get cameras these days. Everybody
Mhm.
has like an outdoor camera. Get it for cheap.
Mhm.
Nobody caught anything coming out of that
Yep.
neighborhood. Did he take a back way? Is there a way to get out of there without being caught? I just don't.
Yeah.
And where would he go? Where would he be with no resources?
No shoes. The one that bothers me is the no shoes. What kid is just going to walk out of the door barefoot? Especially if he was heading out into a forested type area. The shoes really bother me. Lizzie, they bother her too.
I'm looking at the map of where his home would be, and
Mhm.
if you go east, west, north, whatever, either direction from where his house is, he's gonna run into other homes
Mhm.
across the street.
Yeah.
He would have like the woods over on the other side of Long Hollow Pike would be somewhere to go, or
Mhm. Mhm.
or even further up, still passing houses though. It's just I don't know. I don't understand if he did leave willingly. He didn't take a
Mhm.
bag, no shoes, no resources. If he doesn't have a phone, I'm not sure if he has a phone or not, but
Mhm. Mhm. It just a lot of it doesn't even come close to making sense. Not even a little bit. So I don't know. Maybe these guys will be able to see something different. I don't know. Oh, all righty here.
All right. So let's talk too about the relationship involved, because the biological father is very much involved in Sebastian's life as well,
Yes, ma'am. Very much.
right? And how would you describe that relationship, the two of them and the four of you?
It's relatively good. I mean, we talk regularly. He talks to his son on a regular basis, sees him on a regular basis. He's involved in school and therapy. And I mean, he didn't have any extracurricular activities, but I can tell you now, if he did, his dad would be in the front row.
In two different households, and the communication between the three of us is great. I mean, yes, we're just like every parent. We all have our disagreements, but in the end, we come together as a team and we work and we come up with solutions that as we best see fit. I mean, I'm almost in contact with him almost daily.
All right, Greg, why
Isn't
don't
that
you go first?
interesting?
Yeah, so this one I'm only going to cover a couple of things. If we want to talk about the relationship between the family, there's certainly something going on here. But anytime you get a family with a step parent and all that kind of thing, there's going to be some kind of disagreement. But if you don't believe it, he tongue juts when they're talking about how good the relationship is. She uses a qualifier relatively, and she does purse lips. So there's something going on between them. There's some baggage back and forth. It could be around, I read that he's pretty stern about the use of the cell phone. And he says that here, says that we don't allow him to use it freely and that kind of thing. There could be disagreement with the father about that. And then you get to this baggage about where a child lives. So I'm not going to read anything into it. I'm just going to say you might even get different opinions from the father than you're getting from the stepfather and the mother, because that's the way relationships work out. You don't tell me. And then I've recently read that Sebastian was supposed to move back in with the father at the beginning of summer. Look, while we're at this, let's stop for just 1 second and say, do anything you can. Go look at posters of this kid, push these posters through your social media network, do anything you can to help people find this kid, whether he's safe or whether he's not safe. Let's get this kid some help right now and do as much as you can. Social media is a powerful tool. Broadcast this across everything you own, and we may actually get some help for this kid. Chase, what do you got?
Totally agree.
I couldn't even agree more with what they're saying. I mean, the amount, I won't even get into the Cajun Navy right now, or the United Cajun Navy. I'm not even going to go there with this, but there is so much going on in the background at this particular point that it's just like, oh my word. I'd love for them, like we were talking, I'd love for them to look at Nancy Grace's.
So the stepfather here seems to be eager to grab onto this big question that the reporter brings up, of not being able to find where he is. And since we aren't seeing clusters of other behavior, I think this is more likely out of a desire to appear innocent, which, keep in mind, you still see in innocent people who logically understand that they're probably a suspect. Then how would you describe his relationship? And talking about the biological father, this is a question from the reporter. There's a strong, pronounced tongue jut there. And this indicates disagreement or maybe getting away with something, but I think we're seeing disagreement here more likely. And this isn't spelling out guilt or innocence. And most families have some kind of contention between biological and step parents. Even if it's small, it could show up here with this tongue jut behavior. Again, tongue jut is not a cluster. So as he goes forward to describe this relationship, there's some disagreement and some signs that they don't get along all the time. But not only is that common, he's been openly saying it. He's open about talking about that, and pretty open about the relationship not being perfect. And his blink rate, when the biological father is mentioned, also goes upward. And I would not say that any of this would indicate a likelihood of suspicion or doubt as to his involvement. And I'm glad they're strict on the internet usage. I wish I had started at a younger age for that. I didn't know how dangerous it was. Scott, what do you got?
How old were you when you first got on the internet, then, Chase?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We remember because we were in the decades old when we got on the internet.
I remember when it started happening, and on the news, they were talking about this thing called the internet, and they would spell out this HTTP, www, and all this whole thing you had to go to get mail from somebody or to go to some site, and you'd go. It was so archaic. But at the time, it was like, wow, look at all this. And then people now have just grown up with it like it's nothing.
I still have an AOL Messenger account
with the
I wouldn't be telling that, dude.
I remember the first ever email that I sent on CompuServe.
Who is it to?
To Douglas Adams, writer of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He put his email address at the end. He wrote the editorial at the end of the first edition of Wired magazine in the UK. And I wrote him an email going, "Hey, Douglas, I've got email. It's really cool." And he wrote back saying, "Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?"
Wow. My first one was to Bootsy Collins. And I thought since I had an AOL account, he would have one too. So I sent it to, Bootsy Collins at AOL.com, and somebody wrote me back, it wasn't him. And I was like, dude, so it wasn't him.
Well, my first one was Behind the Firewall, Chase. You'll know all those systems.
Yeah. Scott, what do you got?
Okay, sorry, man. Yeah, as she starts her answer, they start rocking in tandem again. So for a few seconds, so they're locked up. I think emotionally.
So why do you think they are both like rocking back and forth? Do you think that it's both like a self-soothing type thing?
Possible, or a habit, just being together for.
Just they're in sync.
You pick up habits from your partner, I guess.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Anything.
They look at the tiniest little thing and understand completely. Like all of them are usually in agreement as to what this or that would mean. It's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, like I love these guys. Like I've been watching them forever. I like paid for their classes, bought their book. Like I adore them.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't watched a lot of any of them, Okay, back we go.
They're feeling the same thing, although she looks dramatically different than he does. This happened a couple of times already, as we've talked about. So it's really interesting to see that happen. It's like, again, it's like matching and mirroring. There, you do things you're not conscious of that make you look like that person, or you do things with that person that you're not conscious you're doing. So the big she says he says the big question mark. She says big question mark. He's vanished, and the mother whispers like that. I think what's going on there is when, like, quite often when you get in these traumatic situations where it's so much trauma, and you hear him say, "Well, tell me about whatever," and years later they go, "I don't even remember that week of what was happening. I don't remember what happened. I remember you being there, but I don't remember anything." I think that's where she is now. I think she's so traumatized she's not going to be able to remember what this interview, doing things like that. That's what that looks like to me, because I've seen people like that before, or go through that, and then when you talk to them, they say, "I don't even remember being there. I don't know what I remember that, but I don't remember actually being there. I was gone." So I think that's where she is at this point. And then after the second question, that's when he sticks. We see that little tongue thing come out. It's almost like some people do when they're angry. So it was kind of odd there. And then the mother, she relays this positive information about the real father, which is cool. And then the stepfather relays information that makes him gives me impression that they probably butt heads a little bit, I think. Then he talks about the disagreements with what's happening with Sebastian at times. But then he explains he gets them worked out. The parents get them worked out as they see fit. But this answer, I don't know where this came from. There was nothing asked about that. But then again, I think it goes back to he's just trying to talk, to have something to say, to feel like, to be a part of it, and to connect with everybody on that. And another thing that sticks out is that huge micro expression of contempt. When it comes up on that sentence, I'm in contact with him almost daily, because just as he starts that, we see it go up like that, and this side of his face go up. And I'll put a quick little screenshot in there because I pulled it out to show you. But something's at that point, something's not right there. I think that something that's not right is, of course, there's competition, between the two fathers, the real father and the stepfather. There's going to be a little contention there, and so I think that's what that's about. And remember, we still haven't heard either one of them say his name yet. No, the only person that said his name is the reporter or the interviewer. Mark, what do you got?
Simply a reiteration of everything that's been said here. Certainly the stepfather here becomes more alert the moment the biological father is brought up. I think that's reasonable given the politics of the situation here. It's not irrational to think that would happen to some degree. It's pronounced here because we don't see the father do very much anyway. He's not big, demonstrative with his feelings, so it kind of stands out a little bit here, but it's not out of the ordinary for the situation, I would say.
One of those tape replays.
Did he have any friends that could have possibly contacted him in some way on his phone?
All his friends at school have been questioned to my knowledge, and none of them knew anything.
So this big question mark. He's vanished.
Yes, ma'am.
No one can figure out where or why. All right. So let's talk about the relationship involved, because the biological father is very much involved in Sebastian's life as well.
Yes, ma'am. Very much.
Right. And how would you describe that relationship, the two of them and the four of you?
It's relatively good. I mean, we talk regularly. He talks to his son on a regular basis, sees him on a regular basis. He's involved in school and therapy. And I mean, he didn't have any extracurricular activities, but I can tell you now, if he did, his dad would be in the front row.
In two different households, and the communication between the three of us is great. I mean, yes, we're just like every parent. We all have our disagreements, but in the end, we come together as a team and we work and we come up with solutions that as we best see fit. I mean, I'm almost in contact with him almost daily.
Let's talk about Sebastian. Tell me about Sebastian. How would you describe him?
Sweet, stubborn. He loves to help. He loves running, and he loves to play his games and his fidgets and Uno. Lord, that's one of his favorite games right now. Favorite color is green.
Does he love music?
Oh, God, he loves music.
Yeah.
An eclectic taste.
How
An
many?
eclectic. I mean, from as everybody knows, Eye of the Tiger to Eddie Vedder.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So we got Pearl Jam on one hand, we've got Survivor on the other over here. We've got Taylor Swift, and
He's got a big crush on her. I mean, country, rock,
no
classic.
hip hop. We don't allow the hip hop.
Well, he doesn't really
Well, I
get
say
into it
rap and
anyways.
things.
You mentioned he loved running. So did he love the outdoors at all? I mean, would something outside that was somewhat outdoorsy be enticing to him or pull him outdoors?
He loves, like, when we were in California and the school had this lap thing to gain money. It was a fundraiser. And every year I did this many laps. I did this many laps. I mean, I've got T-shirts where they would write on his back. Every time the kids went around, they'd mark a mark on the back and they'd keep running. And he just had marks all the way across his back. He likes playgrounds. He hates being dirty. He don't like being dirty.
Yeah, he's not your.
So hates being dirty, yet he went outside in bare feet. It's not making any sense to me the way he left that house. Just vanished from that house, allegedly. No one's seen him since. There's been no scent. There has been a scent. There's been cadaver dogs. They haven't hit. They have hit. He's got friends at school. He's got no friends. Like, there is so much contradiction. It blows me away.
Tomboy style child where he goes outside and plays in the mud.
He loves animals, but he's terrified of bugs.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even a fly, and he's like, oh!
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Both of them are expressing truthful recall when they're listing all these things that Sebastian likes to do. They speak about him in present tense, like he's still around. This shows us a couple of things. Parents who know the disposition of a deceased child are more likely to accidentally default to past tense when referring to them. And parents who speak in past tense about a child who aren't involved can show that there's a finality to their feelings, like they no longer have faith in the child returning. So all the expressions here are genuine and unforced. And when they're both of them discussing his likes and dislikes, they're comfortable. All the facial expressions, the gestures, the movements match the syntax and the timing. They speak about all the things in present tense with genuine joy. And parents who are involved with a disappearance, even if they can look back fondly on a child's behaviors, are still having to manage perceptions and maintain deception, which keeps them from being this fluid and unconstrained in their descriptions. So this fear of being discovered mutes and muffles these expressions that you're seeing right here in this video that look very genuine to me, at least. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, the same. Look, very positive comments around the child. Only one negative one, which is about him being stubborn, which is then kind of laughed off, I think, in a very natural way. To be positive about him, and there's every reason why a child on the spectrum reaching teenage years is going to become more and more stubborn often in their behaviors. Not every child of that nature, and not every child, but there is a possibility that this will be a thing for that family at the moment. They get really animated about the Sebastian's love of music. Clearly, that is a joy for them. It's they're proud. Both of them, they're proud. Especially the stepfather, I think, shows that real engagement with the son around.
Are you surprised at some of the stuff you're hearing, Maxie?
A little. Yeah, but I could see that because he seems like I said earlier, he seems to be the one that I said stoic first because I don't have another word for it. Like just keeping it together a little bit better. So I mean that makes sense. What he just pointed out totally makes sense.
Well, and to be a crane operator, especially one the size that he was running, you pretty much need. Oh, you got to have balls of steel to do that.
Yeah, I didn't want to be vulgar, but
but you do.
But I see you guys. Sorry, some of the things that are like being said in chat, like it made me think it's been something that's like on the back of my mind because if it is possible that he had a phone or maybe he had a Switch, you can if you have a Nintendo account, you can play online with other people. Fortnite, obviously, you're playing with other people. And that's his favorite game. Like, who's to say he wasn't communicating with someone?
Didn't she say what was what I thought she said was her Minecraft?
I thought it was Fortnite.
I don't know.
Yeah. What I was getting to was, do you remember that girl Navarro? I think that's her last name, Navarro. She went missing when she was like 15. She took her laptop, I think, not the charger. I think she took her phone. She just left like in the middle of the night. But they saw her footprints like hopping the fence of their yard, and then they found her like just recently, like this past year.
Okay. I mean,
and
sorry, my chinchillas are just running up a storm right now.
She alive. Yeah, she was found alive. She was actually living with the guy that came and picked her up, who's an adult. But that gets me thinking about Sebastian. I mean, if it is possible that happened, maybe he just got out that quickly that there is no scent to be tracked. I find that kind of hard to believe, but also I think Paula just pointed out, like you would see car lights. There does seem to be like a little whole patch of wooded area right behind his house or right across from it that he could walk through undetected, but
okay.
I don't know.
But then the dogs again, right?
Yes, it's kind of hard to get around dogs. I know that they're pretty accurate. They're fairly always accurate. They're pretty reliant, but I don't know, circumstances, like I said, maybe he just got out really quick. So there's nothing to have tracked. I don't know if it rained that day, the soil, wind, you know. But I still think he would have been seen. Like somebody would have caught him. And
that's what we're here for. Brainstorming is the idea.
The fact that it's the things that he doesn't have with him. Like, did he take a jacket? Did he take extra clothing? Charger for something, a phone. Like, these would be things that you would think that somebody would take if they were planning on running away, possibly. Maybe somebody picked him up or they were just going to run away. They would take stuff with them.
But, you know, absolutely. Like his Switch.
Yeah.
At that age.
I would have packed that up real quick.
Absolutely. I mean, they might even remember those before shoes.
Yep.
But if he's planning himself on leaving that house, there's certain things that he's taking, in my personal opinion. And for there to be no track, it just makes me think that
he didn't leave.
Yeah, or was carried out. Like there's so many questions.
I don't know. That's still, I feel like even if he was. All right. real quick, we're just going to go to the worst scenario possible that somebody took his life inside of that home.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a scent inside that home unless they did it way prior, had time for cleaning, I don't know, or it was done somewhere else entirely and it was never back in the home.
Well, it was taken out of there alive. As long as he wasn't deleted in that house, those dogs aren't going to hit.
What proof do we actually, or what evidence or proof or knowledge do we have that he was even in that home that Sunday evening?
We don't. The only thing that's going to be the phone pings that the cops have, right? I remember, Tony, when you say they work on a routine. A girl I used to know, her son is autistic, and oh my God, the cutest kid. What his absolute favorite thing was to sit on the washing machine when it was running. It was the most bizarre thing. And this guy's like smart like a whip, but just certain little things just a little bit different, right? All righty, let's see here. Let's get back in, Mexi.
Yeah.
Okay.
That music piece. There's clearly, they're proud of his love of music and his engagement with the music. And I think the stepfather seems to show some kind of strong relationship with the son around that music piece. Not the kind of thing that I would expect from two people who've been involved in some kind of crime around the child. Again, do I know that to be true? No, not what I would expect. So you'd need to give me lots of other evidence for me to see that would show me an alternative to this. Show it to me so I could see it, hear it, touch it. You know, we want evidence to the contrary, not just possibilities and ideas and imaginations around it. Greg, what do you think?
So let's first talk about clusters of behavior. And we always say you need cluster of behavior to indicate deception, but that's not the only thing clusters of behavior can indicate. You have to look for clusters that are positive, clusters that mean something else.
Bingo.
And there's a great one here. The stepfather's all locked down. He's in internal voice and his eyes zone out. They go out of focus. That means he's thinking to himself. He's inside his own head working. What's consuming him? You could automatically assign guilt to that. But it doesn't necessarily mean guilt. Uncertainty, other things, we can't tell that. What we can see is a cluster of behavior around ask about the child. What we would expect, and you both have just hammered this one, but what we would expect from a person who is trying to hide that they know the child is dead is not happy when they think about the weirdness of this kid who has all these, 14-year-old kids are mostly weird because they're trying to figure out what being an adult is while they're still a child. And this kid has got a lot of that. And they're amused by that. So he comes out of this absorption, this focus, this internal dialogue with a smile when they're talking about him being stubborn. Yeah, he's that. And you see all of that happiness. We know that a person who knows someone is passed, if you lose a child, you may never get back to the point you think positive things when that child is brought up or when you think about the goofiness of things they did. But you certainly wouldn't be okay with it right now. Good indicator. So clusters can be good or bad. We can see the person consumed by something and he doesn't come out of it into a negative, into a perception management, into one of those tools that we think people who have injured somebody or hurt somebody have. And he uses great illustrators when he's talking about, he loved music here, he loved music here, Pearl Jam to look at that all these things together. So all of these pieces, and then real smiles as they talk about bugs and his panic when he would see bugs, they're amused by that. All those things are a cluster that usually would indicate this person's not involved. So I'm going to call that one out loud and clear. And Mark, to your point, can I be wrong? Sure. I'm not 100% right. If you think you're 100% right as a body language reader, you have no clue what you're doing. Let's just call that out right here. That's all I got.
All right. Should I go?
Oh, I thought you'd go.
Yeah, go on.
In that case,
No.
Scott, do you think you're
It always seems like I go because I talk first. That's why I'm last again.
Sorry
So I've forgotten. It's okay now. I'll be okay.
You're not-
So just not to reiterate all the stuff you guys went over, not to make it boring. The one thing that I think when they were talking about music, and they started talking about, he started saying how he doesn't let him listen to hip hop, and she says, "Well, he doesn't like that anyway." I think he was just putting that in there so to show that he cares about what he listens to, because I think music is probably important to him. Yeah, because a lot of people think hip hop's not music. Well, it's not his kind of music, but it may be one of those things where he doesn't want that kid out repeating what he said, in something that's rap, but he may just talk it and get his hind end busted.
One of those tape replays.
Let's talk about Sebastian. Tell me about Sebastian. How would you describe him?
Sweet, stubborn. He loves to help. He loves running, and he loves to play his games and his fidgets and Uno. Lord, that's one of his favorite games right now. Favorite color is green.
Does he love music?
Oh, he loves music.
Yeah.
An eclectic taste. An eclectic. I mean, from, as everybody knows, Eye of the Tiger to Eddie Vedder.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So we got Pearl Jam on one hand, we've got Survivor on the other over here, we've got Taylor Swift, and
he's got a big crush on her. I mean, country, rock,
no
classic.
hip hop. We don't allow the hip hop.
Well, he doesn't really
Well,
get
I say
into it
rap and
anyways.
things.
You mentioned he loved running. So did he love the outdoors at all? I mean, would something outside that was somewhat outdoorsy be enticing to him or pull him outdoors?
He loves, like, when we were in California and the school had this lap thing to gain money. It was a fundraiser. And every year I did this many laps. I did this many laps. I mean, I've got T-shirts where they would write on his back. Every time the kids went around, they'd mark a mark on the back and they'd keep running. And he just had marks all the way across his back. He likes playgrounds. He hates being dirty. He don't like being dirty.
Yeah, he's not your tomboy.
So I still find that really, really odd. Not so much that he didn't like to be dirty, but that he went out with no shoes on, because that's definitely going to get him dirty.
Yeah. I had never listened to this interview, so this is my first time kind of listening to the bits. That comment caught me as well. He doesn't like to be dirty.
But right, Tony? But he goes out barefoot. It's very unusual.
So it would also be very strange for him to just be out wandering the woods or being on a train or just being out.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Did leave, was carried. Tony, big surprise. All righty. Ready, Maxie?
Yep.
Okay.
Boy style child where he goes outside and plays in the mud.
He loves animals, but he's terrified of bugs.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even a fly, and he's like,
Did you see that real quick? Can you rewind that really quick?
Yeah. Maybe he's watching this as it airs.
His expression kind of disappeared. He went from like kind of smiling, really joyful, and then it just vanished.
Let's talk about Sebastian. Tell me about Sebastian. How would you describe him?
sweet, stubborn. He loves to help. He loves running, and he loves to play his games and his fidgets and Uno. Lord, that's one of his favorite games right now. Favorite color is green.
Does he love music?
Oh, God,
Oh.
he loves music.
Yeah.
An eclectic taste.
I
An
mean,
eclectic. I mean, from as everybody knows, Eye of the Tiger to Eddie Vedder.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So we got Pearl Jam on one hand, we've got Survivor on the other over here. We've got Taylor Swift, and
he's got a big crush on her. I mean, country, rock,
no hip hop.
classic.
We don't allow the hip hop.
Well, he doesn't really
Well,
get
I
into
say
it
rap and
anyways.
things.
You mentioned he loved running. So did he love the outdoors at all? I mean, would something outside that was somewhat outdoorsy be enticing to him or pull him outdoors?
He loves, like, when we were in California and the school had this lap thing to gain money. It was a fundraiser. And every year I did this many laps. I did this many laps. I mean, I've got t-shirts where they would write on his back. Every time the kids went around, they'd mark a mark on the back and they'd keep running. And he just had marks all the way across his back. He likes playgrounds. He hates being dirty. He don't like being dirty.
Yeah, he's not your tomboy style child where he goes outside and plays in the mud.
He loves animals, but he's terrified of bugs.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even a fly, and he's like,
Did you see that?
Sebastian
Smiling.
is able to watch this, and maybe he's watching
This one here?
as it airs.
Yeah, we just passed it. It's cool. Like, you went all the way back, but we just passed it. But like, he went from like this huge smile to like his face just like completely changed to like this grimace.
Okay, I'm gonna put it on again.
No
classic.
hip hop. We don't allow the hip hop.
well, he doesn't really
Well, I
get
say
into it
rap and
anyways.
things.
You mentioned he loved running. So did he love the outdoors at all? I mean, would something outside that was somewhat outdoorsy be enticing to him or pull him outdoors?
He loves, like, when we were in California and the school had this lap thing to gain money. It was a fundraiser. And every year I did this many laps. I did this many laps. I mean, I've got t-shirts where they would write on his back. Every time the kids went around, they'd mark a mark on the back and they'd keep running. And he just had marks all the way across his back. He likes playgrounds. He hates being dirty. He don't like being dirty.
Yeah, he's not your tomboy style child where he goes outside and plays in the mud.
He loves animals, but he's terrified of bugs.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even a fly, and he's like,
If Sebastian is able to watch this, and maybe he's watching this as it airs, and if he is, what do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear from you right now?
oh gosh, that we love you so much, and we want you to come home, and you're not in trouble.
I guarantee you he is loved. And trust me, the open arms are waiting for him to come home. From every parent to every family members to probably everyone in the community. But there's no malice, so we just want our boy home. Bad. Badly. But
That mama's heart, I know it's daddy's too, but I feel like there's always that extra special bond. Can you walk us through what you're thinking right now?
I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he's at. I don't know where he's at.
Let's talk about the community, because I want you all to know, even my church body, I mean, we're all praying for his safe return quickly. What do you all want to say to the community?
Thank you.
with everything from the bottom of our hearts, I would not have imagined how far this has gotten, but there's no way to repay the gratitude the love that we felt from the community, the prayers, but thank you.
But
from the
don't
bottom of our
stop
hearts.
looking.
Yeah, please.
My son is somewhere.
This ain't over until he's home.
I'll go first on this one since I've been going last every time, just about. So, I think she gives a heartfelt answer. That's coming right from the heart. That's a mother who's grieving right there. And he doesn't know what to say, so he goes in this cornball thing about the family and open arms and all that. But the thing that bothers me is when he says there's no malice. That's lawyer
That
talk.
bothered me too.
So, and then he tells, I'll skip that part. So that probably says he's probably spent some time in court. Obviously, he has. And then when he says that, for the reason he would be in court talking about malice, makes me think he might have a little bit of a temper on him. That's neither here nor there at this point. But it sounds like he's trying to convince the mother that he feels for the child. And then we see that upheaval of emotion on her. And that's the thing I always talk about. What's missing from someone who is innocent? You see that. And I think that was when she closed her eyes and she's rocking back and forth and talking in a real quiet volume. And then it hits her again, that horror of what's going on. And she almost loses it there. She shakes out of it, and then she ends up putting her hand to her mouth. Now, if it had been fake, I think what would have happened was she would have done that and put her hand up to her mouth at the same time. But it was just, it was not even a thought, but it came up after that. I think we almost watched her lose it. I think we were really close on that. So I think that's real. But I don't think the dad knows what the word gratitude means by the way he's using it. So I think, again, that lets me know he's just talking and adding stuff in there just to have a lot to talk about during that. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I think this emotion is real. I'm going to probably be a little bit of outlier here. I think the emotion is real. I can't tell you why. I mean, we can assume we understand why. But if it were not real, listen to the interviewer. Now, the interviewer, interestingly, has been using the past tense to describe this kid all throughout the interview because, that's what she does for a living, and she's gotten to that point. When the mother comes apart is interesting because they ask the question, if he can hear you. Now, I'm going to assume that that's because she's taking the gravity of the moment, but also assume if you had some part or feel like you had some part, even if it's just guilt because the kid is gone, you would have that same emotional outburst or emotional release. Because if you think you caused the person to disappear, if you think you did something that caused that kid to run away and then something happened, you would feel a hell of a lot of guilt. So is it guilt? Is it feelings of sadness just from sadness? Can't tell that. What we can see is it's real emotion, heartfelt, feels it, and you can tell it by the person coming there. There's also one on his side that makes me feel a little uncomfortable, not the malice piece. Well, agreed, that probably is something he picked up from someone else. He says, we just want our boy here, but with a big old tongue jut. That's awkward. Now, that could be, Chase, you brought it up early, that he has a feeling of something. He's trying to project something else, but it's awkward. This is the single most awkward thing in the entire video to me. And it would not be if he just said, we want our boy home, but if he didn't do the tongue jut, I'd say, okay, just one weird pattern of words because he's had a couple. But it just makes me want to lean over and tap him and say, why do you say but? Why? Are you losing confidence in the search? I would make it about something else to get him to talk. But look, guys, this is an emotional time for these two people. It doesn't matter what's causing it. But this area, I would focus on those two just to pay attention and listen to their words moving past this. And we will, and see if something comes back up to give us some indicator. So far, I've heard things like, we heard things about friends, and we heard things around in trouble, around resistant and spat, and so fighting. So there's probably been some baggage associated with this that would cause her to feel something. So I'll give her the benefit of the doubt there and say, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, you're right, Greg. The but is, whatever the weather, is certainly a loss of confidence. What that loss of confidence is about, given that there's a lot of a setup of needing hope, especially at this point, and it could be a loss of confidence around that. I don't know. Could be. It's speculation that I'm having. Okay, so I would say you're absolutely right. The mother is close to not being able to contain her emotions anymore. It's affecting the interviewer now. We hear that interviewer's voice change when the interviewer talks about the community. We can hear that interviewer taking on the same rhythm and emotion as the mother. I would say the father has been in cognitive empathy throughout this, and he's now moving to emotional empathy. He's close to joining in with emotional empathy for the mother, close to having the same emotion. My assumption is he's been playing the role of strength and order during this, just as maybe Chase or Scott, I can't remember which of you said, if both people start taking the role of going down that well of emotion, like who's there to control that? You've got to have, if everybody goes down that route, it's complete chaos. Nothing wrong with going down that route, but in a partnership, you kind of need, one partner to hold on to the steering wheel while the other goes down that route, and vice versa. Who knows what.
You're muted.
That's pretty interesting, Mexi.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So do you think there's a possibility that stepdad, what am I saying? That he might have something to do with this and she's aware, or I just can't figure out how this kid got out
Or
of the house.
vice versa.
Or,
I mean, either he did it. Guys, we're just playing out scenario here. It's like, let's pretend that if they are the culprits, it's either he did it, she's backing him up, or vice versa, right? Is it possible that even though he says he was 3.5 hours away,
right,
that he could have came back? It's absolutely possible. We would need to know. I would hope law enforcement already took tracking of his vehicle, phone data.
Yeah, I certainly hope
case.
so. Do a phone dump even right around the home area, and see what was going on around that house. Like, I'm just, those what seemed to me to be flashlights, those look a little concerning to me.
What were those? Now that you brought those up, because they said yesterday on the Nancy Grace interview that law enforcement had told, like, that those weren't flashlights, or that had nothing to do with anything going on. But has law enforcement said that? Did they say that already?
I haven't heard that from law enforcement, but we're not hearing much from them, really.
I feel like I don't know if they're contradicting themselves or not. Like, I'm going to check up on some of the stuff that they said, but I don't know if, like, law enforcement is just, I don't see a world where law enforcement's like giving the parents information, like, oh, this is what's going on, and then allowing you to go out there and say it, unless they're feeding you bad information just to keep you kind of out of the loop, for whatever reason.
There is that too. Yeah, I mean, I like what they're saying here. I'm learning a lot, but there's still so many things that are unanswered.
Gotcha. Thank you, Paula.
Okay, here we go.
But again, is that true? Because
what happens with that stepfather?
Sorry, what was that, Mexi?
Well, I just, like, I know that, like, sometimes
hey, Dingo.
Law enforcement will say something's not important, and then you get to, like, the later stages of all the investigation or trial, and you're like, oh my god, that was totally important, they lied. You know what I mean? Where it's like video evidence or something like that. They do that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All righty. Here we go.
outside of an interview and what happens with the mother outside of that interviewer. The two roles could change instantly. Here's what I like about what I hear at the end of this. Don't stop looking, and the stepfather immediately comes in with pleas. Well, for somebody, if we're thinking here that this is somebody who's involved in a crime, you'd never jump in immediately with pleas. You'd hold back with that. You'd wait and see. This ain't over till he's home, and that stress on home. So look, I think for me, from what I see there, from the evidence that I see in this particular video, there seems to be quite a conflict here between the hope of getting the kid home and a reality at 8 days in as to but what's the likelihood at this point. Statistics never look good at 8 days. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, y'all have some really great points, really insightful points here on this. And I agree, this is what true grief looks like. When the reporter suggests Sebastian's watching, you can see it on her face when she's trying to come up with this. These expressions are almost impossible to fake. But if you're on the other side of the fence and you were thinking of maybe people are really good actors, hold on for a second. These actors that you're thinking of do several takes. They know the script. They prepare ahead of time for the script, and they prepare the emotions to display. And this reaction was instantaneous on her face in response to a question that she didn't know was coming. So when she says, "Oh God," there's the emotional pinnacle of truthful expression and genuine grief there. So just imagining him watching is causing this reaction, and the thought of being able to speak to him. I've watched 1,000 of these things, give or take, and I've never seen a reaction like this in a person who was guilty or involved. Never. And when she's saying, "I just want my baby to be okay," so often we hear people who are involved saying they want answers. Keep that in mind. They want answers to some of these questions. This woman doesn't care about how people see her. She's not managing her words and how she's being perceived. So when you're guilty and you know the disposition of a child, there's plenty of emotional and cognitive room to worry about how to come across. And when it's genuine grief, the desire to manage perception goes out the window. Keep that in mind. You can hear the emotional empathy, Scott, like you point, or whoever that was, in the reporter. And you don't hear this in other cases with the reporters, ever. Let's have another.
Boss me around when it comes to the videos. I'll get to the other.
Go to the next one.
We're going straight to 11, or are we doing
next?
I think we
Don't go to 11.
11. Next video.
One of those tape replays.
If Sebastian was able to watch this, and maybe he's watching this as it airs, and if he is, what do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear from you right now?
Oh, gosh. That we love you so much, and we want you to come home, and you're not in trouble.
I guarantee you he is loved. And trust me, the open arms are waiting for him to come home. From every parent to every family members to probably everyone in the community.
He doesn't seem
But
like he has
there's
open
no malice
arms
that we
to
just
welcome
want
him home.
our boy home. Badly.
Sorry, what was that, Mexi?
Just like the way he's like sitting, his posture, like the way he said that, like he just said, "Believe me, we're waiting for him to come home with open arms," but it doesn't look that way. Like it doesn't look like that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah. The words are not matching up with the expressions.
No.
I can definitely agree with that. Okay. I don't hear you very well, so
Sorry.
I'm not. No, that's okay. So I'm not ignoring you if you're saying something. I think my earbud is acting up, actually. Okay, here we go.
But
That mama's heart, I know it's daddy's too, but I feel like there's always that extra special bond. Can you walk us through what you're thinking right now?
I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he's at. I don't know where he's at.
Let's talk about the community, because I want you all to know, even my church body, I mean, we're all praying. We're all praying for his safe return quickly. What do you all want to say to the community?
Thank you.
with everything from the bottom of our hearts, I would not have imagined how far this has gotten, but there's no way to repay the gratitude, the love that we have felt from the community, the prayers. But thank you.
But
From the
don't
bottom of our
stop
hearts.
looking.
Yeah, please.
My son is somewhere.
This ain't over until he's home.
What do you want to say to our viewers? Anybody who's watching, we've got a lot of folks in this community and in other counties just throughout the state as well. What do you want to say to them?
Help spread the word and keep searching, and thank you. And just if you think you see him, call him in.
Thank all the viewers, everybody that's helped from across the board. I mean, everybody has been tremendous.
Call his name.
Yeah.
He'll answer, and if he doesn't answer, he'll look, even if he's not being verbal at the moment, because he can talk, but sometimes he don't talk. Call his name. Tell him to stay put.
He could be on the move, so keep checking our properties.
Yes. The search is never over until he comes home. That is for sure.
So smart.
But thank you for everything that everybody has done, has volunteered, the continuous efforts. I mean, it's, like I said, I've never seen something to this magnitude before.
Our community is amazing.
We're all praying, hoping, and searching for Sebastian's safe return for that day. Thank you both for
Thank you.
talking with me.
Okay.
Second.
There we go. All right, Chase, what do you got?
So one thing that all of us look for in every video that we look at is change. How does a person change from one way of behaving to a different way of behaving? In this whole video, we don't see a lot of it. Both of their behaviors are consistent and continuous throughout this whole thing. And here's why this is so important. When you're innocent, behaving like you behave requires almost zero cognitive effort. No one's focusing on their behavior because they don't feel the need to. The camera being present might add a layer of stress here, but that's acceptable, and we can see the difference between that, I promise you. But being consistent through all of this, no matter how much training somebody's had, if you're guilty of something, I would say it's as close to impossible as it gets to fake at this level. And Mark, you're an actor. You've been to all these famous acting schools and stuff. Mm-hmm. Can you help us just to understand like how hard this would be to fake at this level?
Here's what makes it really hard is when you're acting, the audience have to get it. You're communicating, so it can't be muddy. It's got to be a clear communication, which means you can't have lots of things going on in your mind. You've got to have a clear through line. And that's what makes really good actors great communicators, but not necessarily supernatural. They don't come across as natural. You go, God, they're a great performer, but that's not what somebody would do in real life. What you're seeing here is real life. It's muddy. It's chaotic. It's some of it is very, very subtle. Some of it's very, very clear. So none of this is like an actor would actually do. I would say acting is an art form, a communication and expression, and what you're seeing there is real life. 24 times 30 times on 30 times a second right now. So hard to fake. And even good actors, they don't get awards because they were really natural. They get awards because they were very, very communicative. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Chase.
Yeah, great call.
Perfect. Look, here's what I've got on this one. She's got a clear strategy, which is urgent. Call his name. And the father jumps in with yes. Anybody I would suspect who is engaged in a crime in some way would try and put a barrier in the way of this. Like, here's why that won't work, or we've tried that, or, they would put in barriers in the way because they don't want somebody who's involved in a crime does not want the evidence to be found and will consciously or unconsciously put barriers in the way there. And look how the mother then acts out the son. If there's any change in baseline, Chase, that's one of our biggest changes in baseline, as she kind of takes on that spirit of the son and performs how he would perform in that situation. If she knew that he's not alive, she wouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't perform in that way. That's her taking on that live son in her mind. Scott, what do you got on this one?
It's going to be short and boring, so don't go over what you guys have gone over again. We're seeing everything we should see. So in other words, what you guys are saying is we're seeing everything we should see. It looks real to me. It looks like it should look to me. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, just a few things. A couple of that come out immediately is exactly what you said, Mark. Sometimes it's very muddy. It's not the clear thing that we expect. And add to that guilt. A child is missing, guarantee you there's guilt. And I don't mean that they're guilty of doing something. I mean, they feel guilt. Imagine yourself, if your dog escapes and gets lost, you feel guilt. Imagine that compounding many times over by an only child and by a child who is reliant on you. So there's going to be some of that. There are two things I'd point out here. One is when she says, call his name, he will, you see something in his face of concern. And I think that concern is maybe often the mother is going to think the child is more communicative than he might think because he was an outsider coming into the child's life. He may be thinking, well, maybe, but you can see something fleet through his face very quickly. It doesn't look like grief or shame or any of that. It just looks like, I'm not sure about that. And then his nostrils flare. If you're about to cry and you're trying to contain emotion, often men will flare their nostrils, especially in the South where people are not maybe as emotionally broadcast as some other parts of the country where certain cultures may be more demonstrative. Old South is very contained, and you may be seeing that. I just see that I think he's close to emotional at the very last thing. So nothing new. That's all I got for this one.
One of those tape replays.
What do you want to say to our viewers? Anybody who's watching, we've got a lot of folks in this community and in other counties just throughout the state as well. What do you want to say to them?
Help spread the word and keep searching, and thank you. And just if you think you see him, call him in.
Thank all the viewers, everybody that's helped from across the board. I mean, everybody has been tremendous.
Call his name.
Yeah.
He'll answer, and if he doesn't answer, he'll look, even if he's not being verbal at the moment, because he can talk, but sometimes he don't talk. Call his name. Tell him to stay put.
He could be on the move, so keep checking your properties.
Yes. Like, the search is never over until he comes home. That is for sure.
So smart.
But thank you for everything that everybody has done, has volunteered, the continuous efforts. I mean, it's, like I said, I've never seen something to this magnitude before.
Our community is amazing.
We're all praying, hoping, and searching for Sebastian's safe return for that day. Thank you both for talking with me.
Just one more thing.
All right, let's throw it around the room and talk about what we think we've seen. Mark, how's it looking to you?
Look, I mean, so much of it looks absolutely fine. Not fine. There's a kid missing. Nothing fine about that. But my attention wouldn't be on these two at this point. My attention would be on, can we get some more information from the outside in terms of where Sebastian might be at the moment? I'm sure we'll be able to put a link down there. If you see something, if you have some information, you go to that link. Let's put our energy there. Certainly that's where I'll put my energy. Chase, what do you think?
Yeah. Let's talk about this Nintendo Switch for just a second, I promise. My son is 15, and we all use these iPhones here, and I put every parental control known to mankind on that phone. The guy that works for my company used to be a manager at an Apple store. He walked me through the whole thing. I didn't screw anything up. And he's like, oh, can I lay with my phone tonight so I can listen to an audiobook? Turn the permissions on for Audible. Entire phone unlocked the next morning. Whole thing. I tried it again, unlocked. So let's not discount that this switch could very well be getting on the internet, and there's other reasons for him to be on the internet, talking to people and stuff. The testosterone is at like an all-time high in his life right now. And there's so many apps out there that like self-destruct messaging and stuff. So we're praying for him. And I think this video stands as a testament to how differently honest behavior looks. And if you go back and look at it, how wildly different it looks from some of those other videos that we've looked at. And if you have any information about Sebastian, please reach out, or any missing person. One call could bring a child back to their family, even if it feels like it's insignificant. And if you have any information about Sebastian, call 1-800-TBI-FIND. TBI-FIND. Greg?
Yeah, let's say that again. 1-800-TBI-FIND. Call that number if you have any contact with this guy. If you see anybody, if you think you've seen him, call, because they need every lead they can possibly get. Let's talk about some of the words used in this interview. And I agree with you, Chase. Let's compare this to all the others we've seen where we're laughing. Did you hear us laugh a whole lot in this one? Actually, it is kind of low key because we're not laughing. We're not like saying, look at that knucklehead.
So what are you thinking, Maxie?
About the parents?
Mm-hmm.
Again, guys, like their input, they're just saying what they're seeing, and it can mean a lot of things. You don't necessarily know where that feeling is coming from for the reaction that they're getting. I see something different. Like when she was closing her eyes and, you know, when they asked her, where do you think he might be? Or, you know, she was saying that she didn't know where he was. She closed her eyes and like, she just like all of a sudden jumped out of it. I've seen like other interrogations of known people like who take people's lives do stuff like that. Like they put themselves in this place, and maybe it's out of guilt that they're envisioning and going back there. And I don't know if what happened was an accident, and maybe they're just reliving it. I don't know, but I saw something different there.
Yeah, or the natural guilt of losing your child.
That too. I mean, that's very possible as well. And just thinking of all scenarios that you know could possibly be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I hope that the searches start up again tomorrow. I hope that part of those searches, I hope that United Cajun Navy, I hope they're like just push
there's
the
something
hell
going down there, right? Isn't there something up there? Some tit for tat. Some.
Oh, are you talking about JLR?
No, not necessarily JLR. I thought that like the rest of the Cajun Navy, because there's several factions of them.
Right. So there's the Cajun Navy, and then this other group is the United Cajun Navy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we'll see. They should just get back out there and search. It doesn't matter if you're part of an actual search team. What does matter everything should be coordinated, but you don't have to go with Cajun Navy. If somebody else is doing a search, go search somewhere else, you know?
That is the thing. And they tried to scare everybody out of there, you know? And it's just, even Nancy Grace was saying, like, social media is the one bringing attention to this case. Until social media showed up, you didn't hear about Sebastian for the first 3.5 weeks,
Mhm.
you know? And it wasn't mainstream that was doing it. Now, if the United Cajun Navy is as twisted as it's starting to sound, there's a reason they didn't want anybody out there. There
It
is a
definitely
reason.
looks shady, and after what they were saying yesterday on Nancy Grace's interview, I don't know if that
Yep.
was them or somebody else on the panel, but they were like, "Yeah, I mean, just it'd be different if you take the video and then edit it and then post it." And you're like, "No,
No.
no,
People
that's."
wanna see this, what's happening,
Yeah,
you know? There was this big thing that there was 8 dogs that hit on that spot. Well, they didn't have 8 dogs in the whole damn place. You know, it was 6 dogs, it was 8 dogs, there was a unalived homeless guy, there was just, oh, lordy, lordy,
yeah,
lordy.
it's from Corpus Christi, Tony. I've been trying to follow that one. That he needs some attention too.
Which one is that now?
I posted him on Discord. He's 21, missing out of Corpus Christi.
Mhm.
Let me just look him up because his name's not coming to me right now. Caleb Harris, and he's been missing since March 4th. He
Caleb Harris.
apparently had no shoes on either.
And how old is Caleb?
21, I think. 21.
21. Wow. Caleb Harris. Another very strange case, Mom's saying.
Yeah.
Lordy. You know, it's just time is passing and a person's getting more and more concerned about Sebastian, you know, and there's these other cases that are coming up that
Mm-hmm.
just coming to light. So, yeah. No, United Cajun Navy is the bad guys, allegedly. And I've been watching JLR on Twitter, and I don't think they knew what bear they were poking.
I just want to say I'm really thankful that JLR was in Tennessee, that he could go for Riley, and then he also took the time to go
Mhm.
out for Sebastian. I think that's really good. If you guys haven't taken the time, or if you're not already subscribed to JLR, please go over there, subscribe, show him the love.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll put
Because
up the
he is
link
doing a
here.
good job. Regardless of what anybody wants to say about JLR, he is being absolutely great in
Mhm. Yeah,
the last few months,
absolutely.
should I say. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he has given us the permission to stream whatever, and I know he will do that for pretty much everybody. And not everyone is willing to do that. And it is nice to have someone boots on the ground, keeping us all informed of what is actually going out there.
And the goal is to get their names out. Sebastian, Riley,
Absolutely.
Summer,
Yeah. Yeah.
Monkey. It's important, I think, as long as everyone keeps in track that that's what it's all about, is for these
Mhm.
kids, it's for the missing, or whoever it
Mhm.
might be at the time. And I think he
Yeah.
does very well. Like, that's why he lets his content be shared, is because he just wants their name to get out.
It's for the right reason.
Yeah.
It's not for the clicks and views. It's for information on these kids, sometimes adults, get their names out there. And the more people that see this stuff, the more people that are going to be able to
Yeah.
donate their time. And somebody might just
Awareness.
have one tiny little piece of a puzzle that they're not even sure of. So, yeah. Yeah, Ellie, no dog hits. Thank you, Priscilla. Yeah.
I know Nancy Grace did a good job of calling everybody out. She would ask like one of the people on the panel a question, and then they'd go off on like this little spiel, and she'd cut them off real quick. She'd be like, "But tell me,
Mm-hmm.
do you know if law
Mhm.
enforcement said this? Yes or no?" And they're just like, "No."
Oh, yeah, she's just totally like, yeah, love her or hate her, she gets the job done. You know? Well, Mexi, I have had a long day streaming. It's been a really busy day with all of these different cases that are going on. You know, that bridge in Maryland. No, Baltimore. Yep.
Yeah,
That bridge. Oh, Lordy. And then, of course, Karen Reed was there for another hearing. And then, you know, stuff going on with Sebastion'S case. So I'm glad that you asked about this, because heck, why not do this on a live where we can get his name out that much more, right?
It's all about Sebastian, guys. Share his name, share his picture.
Yeah. 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 Please do. Share out the live, put it on your platforms, anything that you see that on any of these cases. The best thing that you can do for them is get them the exposure on your social media, regardless of what that platform is. So yeah, special thanks to JLR for letting us use his content. And thank you very much to the behavior panel.
The behavioral panel. I haven't yet saved like a thing for them yet. So I've been trying to copy and paste. But yes, special thank you to the behavioral panel for letting us use their content. And
absolutely.
If you're
and
not
thank you to Scott.
Yes, for that email. So lovely.
Yeah, and he responded so fast. You know, anybody that I talk to about, you know, can I use your content? Because it's either going to be because they have got like a bunch of great information. It's not going to, that's what it's all about.
It's also a learning thing, you know, for your own personal life. Maybe you start catching on someone who's trying to deceive you in your own real world.
Absolutely.
You know? But it's just a good educational thing and something different rather than just doing true crime. Like, it's. But do go subscribe also to Mina Monsters. She does do a lot on Sebastian. She did a lot on Riley. She does a lot on any missing person. So please go make sure to subscribe to her as well if you haven't already.
Her link is in the chat as well as in the description. And yeah, Mom is one of the best advocates that I know. You know, she is willing to do what it takes, you know? Yes, very true. True crime will melt your brain. My brain is melted tonight. Well, thanks for jumping on with me tonight, Mexi.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a nice treat. Nice treat. So guys, if you have not subscribed, please do share this out, and don't forget to hit that bell because as you could, I started streaming, I think it was about 6 o'clock this morning, if not earlier.
Yeah, you've been going at it, champ.
Yeah, well, there's been so much.
That's
you
the thing
know?
about this world. There's always something going on. You know, one day I just want to wake up
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like sunshine and rainbows. I
Oh
want to see
God.
people winning the lottery. There's just like a pot of gold on everybody's doorstep. Everyone's having a
That's
freaking
gonna take
fantastic day.
substances.
That's what I want. That'd be
That'll
nice.
take substances of some form. I don't know what form.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, you just start dreaming about creators. Oh, Lordy.
It's good to hope, you know.
So, guys, great to have you all here. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Mexi. I'm so glad you joined me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Y'all be safe. Stay aware.
Yeah, be safe, stay aware, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So,
Bye.
bye.